I stepped off the plane from Italy with a heart full of stories and a camera roll bursting with content for my travel vlog. 2 weeks of exploring hidden trattorias and ancient villages had given me exactly what I needed for my next series. My name is Avery, and until today, I thought I had finally figured out how to balance my dream job with my marriage. The first sign something was wrong came when Eric didn't answer my texts after I landed. Usually, he'd send at least a quick, "welcome back," or ask when to pick me up. Instead, I got radio silence and had to grab an Uber home. No big deal, I told myself. He was probably stuck in a meeting or something. The second red flag hit me when I saw his mother's car in our driveway. "Hello?" I called out, dragging my suitcase through the front door. The house felt different somehow, tense, like the air before a storm. I found them sitting in our living room like they were waiting for a funeral to start. Eric perched on the edge of the couch, his hands clasped together so tight his knuckles were white. His mother Lorraine sat next to him, ramrod straight in her designer pantsuit, lips pressed into that thin line I'd grown to hate over the years. "Welcome home, dear," Lorraine said, in that syrupy voice that always meant trouble was coming. Eric wouldn't look at me. "We need to talk, Avery." My stomach dropped. I'd seen enough movies to know nothing good ever followed those words. "What's going on?" "Your lifestyle," Lorraine began, gesturing vaguely at my travel-worn appearance. "It's becoming concerning." I let out a laugh that probably sounded more nervous than I intended. "My lifestyle? You mean my job? The one that's finally taking off?" "That's exactly what we mean." Eric finally looked up, and something in his eyes made me take a step back. "This isn't sustainable, Avery. The constant traveling, the irregular income, living out of a suitcase. It's not how a marriage is supposed to work." "Not how a marriage is supposed to work?" I echoed, my voice rising. "My channel just hit 500,000 subscribers. I'm making more now than I did in corporate marketing." Lorraine cleared her throat. "Money isn't everything, dear. What about starting a family? Putting down roots?" "We agreed to wait on kids," I said to Eric, ignoring his mother. "You said you supported this." "I supported a hobby," he replied, standing up. "But this has gone too far. I need stability, Avery. A real wife, not someone who's gone more than she's home." The word "real" hit me like a slap. I noticed then that there were papers on the coffee table. Legal papers. "What is this?" I asked, though I already knew. "An ultimatum," Eric said quietly. "Either you give up the vlog and commit to building a real life here with me, or what?" My voice came out barely above a whisper. "Or we end this now, before we waste any more time." I picked up the papers with trembling hands. Divorce papers, already filled out with everything except my signature. "You did this while I was gone?" I looked between them, reality crashing down around me. "You waited until I was out of the country to plan this?" "We knew you wouldn't be reasonable if we tried to discuss it normally," Lorraine said, as if that made it better. I stood there, still in my travel clothes, jet-lagged and shell-shocked, looking at these two people who claimed to love me, plotting to strip away everything I'd built for myself. "I need time to think," I managed to say, backing toward the stairs. "I can't. I need time." "Don't take too long," Lorraine called after me. "Eric deserves an answer." I made it to our bedroom before the tears started, but they weren't sad tears. They were angry ones. As I sat on the edge of our bed, still clutching those papers, something shifted inside me. They thought they could force me to choose? Fine, but they weren't going to like the choice I made. I pulled out my phone and opened my messages to Mia. "You won't believe what just happened. Can I crash at your place tonight?" Mia's spare bedroom became my sanctuary that night. I sat cross-legged on her guest bed, surrounded by takeout containers while she paced the room, her creative director energy in full force as she processed my story. "So let me get this straight," she said, gesturing with a spring roll. "They ambushed you with divorce papers because you're too successful? According to them, it's about stability." I stabbed at my pad thai. "Eric says he wants a real wife." "Oh, honey." Mia sat beside me. "What are you going to do?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Eric's face appeared on the screen. I'd been dodging his calls all evening, but something made me answer this time. "Where are you?" His voice was tight. Mother's worried sick. I almost laughed. Mother's worried? I'm the one who came home to an intervention. Just come home. We can talk about this rationally. Rationally? The word tasted bitter. Like how you rationally waited until I was out of the country to plan this with your mother? That's not fair. I've been trying to talk to you about this for months. No, you've been dropping hints about how my work isn't serious enough. There's a difference. Silence stretched between us. Then, I got a promotion. What? Senior partner. They announced it while you were gone. It means more responsibility, more stability. We could finally start that family mothers always. Stop. My hand tightened around the phone. Just stop. This isn't about your promotion or your mother's wants. This is about control. Don't be dramatic, Avery. I'm trying to build a future for us. No, you're trying to build the future you and your mother want. Did you even watch any of my Italy videos? More silence. Of course he hadn't. I have to go, I said. I'm working on editing my new content. See? This is exactly what I mean. You're always working on your little videos instead of. I hung up. Mia watched me carefully. You okay? I need my laptop. I was already pulling it out of my bag. Remember that amazing grandmother I met in Tuscany? The one who taught me her family's secret pasta recipe. Yeah? I'm posting that video tonight. Not next week like I planned. My fingers flew over the keyboard. With a special dedication. Avery. Mia's voice held a warning note. To all the women who were told their dreams weren't practical enough. I typed in the description. And to those who tried to clip their wings. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. The video had gone viral overnight, with comments pouring in from women sharing their own stories of being pressured to give up their passions for someone else's comfort. Then came the text from Eric. My colleagues saw your video. Was that really necessary? I was crafting a response when another message appeared, this one from Lorraine. You're embarrassing this family. Eric deserves better than your childish attention-seeking. My hands shook as I typed back. Family? You mean the one trying to force me to choose between my identity and your approval? We're trying to help you grow up, she replied. One day you'll thank us. I screenshot the exchange and sent it to Mia with the caption, watch me grow up and away from this toxicity. Later that afternoon, I sat in my favorite coffee shop, editing my next video when Jackson, my mentor in the vlogging world, slid into the seat across from me. Saw your Tuscany piece, he said, pushing a fresh latte toward me. Powerful stuff. You okay? Getting there. I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. Did you know they had those papers ready before I even left for Italy? Jackson's eyebrows shot up. That's cold. Yeah. I took a sip of coffee. But you know what's colder? I just checked our joint account. Eric moved most of our savings to his personal account while I was gone too. Jesus. Jackson leaned back. What are you going to do? I opened my laptop, showing him the draft of my next video, a behind-the-scenes look at how I built my brand from scratch. I'm going to remind them that they're not the only ones who know how to plan ahead. The coffee shop's window reflected my smile, and for the first time since coming home, it didn't feel forced. They wanted to play hardball? Game on. I never meant to find the emails. I'd only logged into our shared computer to download some backup footage when a notification popped up from Eric's account. Usually, I'd ignore it, but the subject line caught my eye. Concerns about Avery. My hands hovered over the keyboard. This was wrong. This was invasion of privacy. This was exactly what I needed to do. The email chain between Eric and his mother went back months. Before Italy. Before the ultimatum. Before everything. She's becoming more distant, Eric had written 3 months ago. Every time she leaves for these trips, she comes back different. More independent. Less willing to listen to reason. Lorraine's response made my stomach turn. That's why we need to act now, dear. Before she completely loses sight of her real responsibilities. I've spoken with Sarah at the firm. There's still an opening in the marketing department if we can convince her to give up this internet fantasy. They'd planned it all. The job. The intervention. Everything. They'd even discussed ways to make my vlogging more difficult, accidentally deleting footage, scheduling family events during my editing time. guilt-tripping me about travel expenses despite my channel's revenue. I was still staring at the screen when my phone buzzed. Eric, coming home tonight? His voice was carefully neutral. Mother's making her pot roast. Actually, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm meeting with my lawyer. Silence. Then, lawyer. Yes, to discuss the interesting emails I just found. The ones about sabotaging my career. You went through my emails? His voice rose. That's private. Private like plotting with your mother to destroy my business? Private like arranging a job for me without my knowledge. We were trying to help you. Help me. I laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. By going behind my back? By treating me like a child who can't make her own decisions. You're being irrational. No, I'm being crystal clear. For the first time in our marriage, I'm seeing everything perfectly. I took a deep breath. I'm sending you a link to my latest video. You should watch it. Mother too. I hung up before he could respond and opened my editing software. The footage I'd been saving for next week would work perfectly for today instead. I'd filmed it in a tiny restaurant in Rome, interviewing a female chef who'd fought her entire family to follow her culinary dreams. 3 hours later, the video went live, breaking free, when family doesn't mean support. In the description, I included screenshots of select emails, carefully edited to protect private information, but clear enough to show the manipulation. My phone exploded immediately. First came Lorraine's text. Take that down immediately or you'll regret it. Then Eric, you've gone too far. Mother's crying. Finally, a message from an unknown number. Saw your video. I'm a producer with Travel Network. Let's talk. I screenshotted the producer's message and sent it to both Eric and Lorraine with one line. Funny how my internet fantasy keeps proving you wrong. Mia called moments later. Girl, you're trending. Have you seen the comments? I hadn't. I opened the video and felt tears well up as I read them. Hundreds of women sharing similar stories of family members trying to clip their wings, of partners who couldn't handle their success, of mothers-in-law who saw independence as a threat. I never wanted this fight, I told Mia. I just wanted to share the world with people. Sometimes the biggest fights find us when we're just trying to be ourselves, she replied. You coming to the studio tomorrow? Jackson's offering to help you film a follow-up. I glanced at the divorce papers still sitting in my bag, then at the producer's message on my phone. Yeah, I'll be there. I think it's time to show them exactly what happens when you try to cage someone who was born to fly. My laptop pinged with another email notification, Lorraine again, probably with more threats or guilt trips. I closed the browser without reading it. They'd had months to scheme and plot against me. Now it was my turn to write the story, and this time, I was making sure it had a different ending. The meeting with the Travel Network producer went better than I could have dreamed. Sitting in Jackson's studio, I stared at the contract in front of me, my hands shaking slightly as I read through the terms. They want to do a whole series? Mia paced behind me, practically vibrating with excitement. About women breaking free from traditional expectations around the world? 6 episodes to start, I confirmed, still processing it myself. Each featuring a different country and different stories of women who chose their dreams over society's demands. Jackson leaned against his editing desk. This is huge, Avery. Like, life-changing huge. My phone buzzed. Eric again. I'd been dodging his calls since the email expose, but this time I answered. What? Mother's in the hospital. My heart stuttered. What happened? Anxiety attack. After your little stunt with those emails went viral, her church group started asking questions. She couldn't handle the shame. The guilt hit hard, exactly as he intended. That's not fair, Eric. Fair? Was it fair to expose private family matters to the world? To humiliate us both for some internet fame? I looked at the contract on the table, then at my friends watching with concern. No, what wasn't fair was you two plotting behind my back to destroy my career. What wasn't fair was... She's asking for you, he interrupted. Says she needs to explain something. Something about her own mother. I caught Mia's eye, saw her subtle head shake of warning. I can't. I have a meeting. More important than family? You lost the right to play the family card when you chose your mother's happiness over your wife's. Silence stretched between us. Then I saw the video. The one about the chef in Rome. You actually watched it? Yes. His voice softened. She reminded me of you. Passionate. Determined. A pause. Scared of disappointing everyone. My throat tightened. I'm not scared anymore. I know. That's what terrifies me. After we hung up, I stared at my phone until Jackson cleared his throat. You okay? They're trying to pull me back in, I said. Using guilt, using family, using everything they know about me. What are you going to do? I picked up the contract. I'm going to sign this. Then I'm going to visit my mother-in-law. Avery, Mia started, but I cut her off. Not because they guilt-tripped me, but because I need her to see something. An hour later, I walked into Lorraine's hospital room, laptop under my arm. She looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in the hospital gown. Eric wasn't there, probably at work, keeping up appearances. Come to finish what you started? Her voice was weak, but still carried that edge. No. I set up my laptop. I came to show you something. I pulled up the rough cut of my next video, interviews with my followers sharing their stories of breaking free. Women who started businesses in their 50s, who went back to school after divorce, who traveled the world solo after years of being told they couldn't. These are the lives you wanted to prevent, I said quietly. These are the dreams you tried to crush because they scared you. You don't understand. But I do, because they told me about the Lorraines in their lives too. The women who tried to keep them small because they never got the chance to be big themselves. Her face crumpled. My mother didn't let you pursue art school. I know. Eric told me once. Tears slid down her cheeks. I was trying to protect you from disappointment. No, I closed the laptop. You were trying to protect yourself from regret. But it's not too late, Lorraine. Not for either of us. I left the contract on her bedside table as I walked out. Let her see what her daughter-in-law was capable of. Let her understand what she'd tried to stop. My phone buzzed with a text from the producer. When can you start filming? I smiled as I typed back. How soon do you need me? Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's world. Sometimes it's about building your own so magnificently that they have to watch from the sidelines, knowing they tried to stop it from existing. The dinner was my idea. One last attempt at reconciliation, I told myself, though deep down I knew it was more about proving something. I'd spent the afternoon cooking a traditional Italian feast, recreating recipes I'd learned in Tuscany. The same recipes that had helped launch my channel's success. Eric arrived first, wearing the careful expression of a man walking into a minefield. Smells good. Thanks. I kept my focus on plating the osso buco. Your mother here yet? She's parking. Avery. He stepped closer. About the hospital visit. The doorbell cut him off. Lorraine swept in, designer handbag clutched like a shield. Well, isn't this quaint? I'd set the dining room table with my best dishes, candles flickering against the growing darkness outside. The travel network contract sat beside my plate and signed, but impossible to ignore. I made everything from scratch, I said, serving the food, including the recipes I learned from that grandmother in Florence. The one whose video you both refused to watch. Lorraine picked up her fork with practiced elegance. Dear, about that contract. Let's eat first, Eric interrupted. Can we just have one normal family dinner? Normal. The word tasted bitter. Like the normal life you planned for me behind my back? Avery, Lorraine's voice carried that familiar warning tone. We've apologized. What more do you want? Apologized? I set down my wine glass harder than intended. You had an anxiety attack and played the victim. Eric blamed me for humiliating you. Neither of you has actually apologized. Because there's nothing to apologize for, Eric snapped. We were trying to help you. Help me. I pulled out my phone, opening my analytics app. My channel has over 1 million subscribers now. The video about that Roman chef? It paid for this dinner. The series about breaking free from toxic expectations? It's funding my lawyer. Lorraine's fork clattered against her plate. Lawyer, did you think I wouldn't fight back? I turned to Eric. Did you really believe I'd just give up everything I've built because you and your mother decided it wasn't proper enough? We decided? Eric laughed, but it wasn't kind. You decided years ago that your internet fame was more important than our marriage. Internet fame? I stood up, hands shaking. I built a business. I created something meaningful. While you two were plotting to cage me in some corporate job, I was helping other women find their voice. And what about my voice? Eric stood too. What about what I wanted? What you wanted? I gestured at Lorraine. Or what she wanted for you. Don't you dare, Lorraine started, but I cut her off. No, I'm done being polite. I'm done pretending this is about family or stability or whatever excuse you're using this week. This is about control. This is about you being so scared of change that you'd rather destroy your son's marriage than let him be happy with someone who doesn't fit your mold. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. Then Lorraine reached for her bag, pulling out a familiar document. The contract I'd left at the hospital. You want to know what I think about your success? She ripped the contract in half. I watched the pieces flutter to the table, something breaking and reforming inside me. Thank you. Thank you. Eric looked confused. Yes. I walked to my office, returning with another copy of the contract, this one already signed. Thank you for finally showing me who you really are. Both of you. What does that mean? Lorraine's voice wavered. It means I start filming next week. In Paris. I picked up the torn contract pieces. And when I get back, I won't be coming home. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. Avery, wait. Eric reached for me, but I stepped back. I made tiramisu for dessert, I said, gathering my keys and phone. Enjoy it. Consider it a parting gift, proof that sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply living well. I walked out of my house for the last time, leaving them with their cold osso buco and shattered expectations. In my car, I texted Mia, "It's done. Can you help me pack tomorrow?" Her response was immediate. "Proud of you. Wine and boxes are ready whenever you are." I started the engine, watching the dining room lights through the window. Sometimes you have to burn bridges to stop yourself from crossing them again. The morning I planned to leave for Paris, I woke up to find my YouTube channel gone. Not just a video or two, the entire channel had vanished. 5 years of work, over 1 million subscribers, everything that proved I wasn't just playing at success, disappeared overnight. My hands shook as I called Jackson. Someone hacked me. Everything's gone. I'm on it, he said. But Avery, there's more. Check your email. The travel network's message was brief, due to concerns about recent controversies and channel instability. We regret to inform you that we must withdraw our offer. My phone buzzed with a text from Eric. Mother knows people in television. Maybe now you'll understand what real stability means. I sat on Mia's guest bed, surrounded by half-packed boxes, trying to breathe. They'd finally done it. They'd found a way to clip my wings. We can fight this, Mia said, pacing the room. Jackson knows cybersecurity people. We can prove. Prove what? My voice cracked. That my mother-in-law has connections? That my husband's firm probably handled the network's accounts? They made it look legitimate. Clean. My phone kept buzzing. Followers asking what happened. Collaborators wondering about planned projects. Each notification felt like another brick in the wall they were building around me. Then came Lorraine's call. Against my better judgment, I answered. Ready to be reasonable? Her voice dripped with false concern. Eric's willing to forget all this unpleasantness. The marketing position is still open. Did you enjoy it? My voice was eerily calm. Destroying something I built just because you couldn't control it? Oh, darling. We saved you from yourself. From this fantasy world you'd created. Real life isn't about gallivanting around the globe, pretending to be something you're not. The only pretending I did was trying to be the daughter-in-law you wanted. Come home, Avery. Stop this foolishness. I ended the call and turned to Mia. I need your camera. What? Your camera. And help me set up my phone to record. Understanding dawned in her eyes. They can take down your channel, but they can't stop me from starting over. I was already pulling out my laptop. Call Jackson. Tell him to bring his equipment. We're doing this live. An hour later, we had a makeshift studio set up in Mia's living room. 3 cameras, proper lighting, and a determination I hadn't felt since my first video. Going live in 3, 2. Jackson gave me the signal. Hi, I'm Avery Quinn, and this isn't my usual setup. This morning, I woke up to find my channel deleted. 5 years of work, gone. Why? Because I refused to give up my dreams to fit someone else's idea of success. My hands were steady now as I looked directly into the camera. To my mother-in-law, who thinks she's teaching me a lesson about stability, thank you. You've taught me that true stability comes from within, not from following someone else's rules. To my soon-to-be ex-husband, who chose control over love, thank you. You've shown me that sometimes losing everything is the first step to gaining something better. And to everyone watching, this is what starting over looks like. This is what they don't tell you about following your dreams. Sometimes people will try to stop you. Sometimes they'll succeed. But they can never take away your voice unless you let them. The viewer count kept climbing. Comments flooded in. Stories of similar experiences, offers of help, messages of support. Then came a comment that made my blood freeze. Lying about your family for views? Pathetic. Hope you're ready for legal consequences. Eric's law firm's official account. I stared at the threat, feeling the walls close in again. They could destroy my career, my reputation, everything I'd built. They had the resources, the connections, the power. But as I looked at the growing support in the comments, at Mia and Jackson standing firmly beside me, I realized something. They could take away my platform, but they couldn't take away my story. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't fighting back, it's refusing to be silenced. I looked back at the camera, straightened my shoulders, and smiled. So, who wants to hear about a little cafe in Paris I'll be visiting next week? The viewer count hit 100,000 and kept climbing. The Netflix email arrived 3 months into my Paris stay. Not just an offer, a full series deal. 6 episodes, international production, complete creative control. Everything Eric and Lorraine had tried to destroy was rising from the ashes, stronger than before. I hadn't expected them to show up at my Paris apartment. But there they were, standing in my doorway like ghosts from a life I'd left behind. Impressive view, Lorraine said, pushing past me into the sunlit space. The firm's been following your recovery with interest. Eric lingered by the door, looking uncomfortable in his tailored suit. We saw the Netflix announcement. Did you? I kept my voice neutral, though my hands itched to grab my phone and start recording. Funny how life works out sometimes. Darling, Lorraine settled onto my couch like she owned it. We've been thinking. Perhaps we were hasty in our approach. Hasty? I laughed, the sound echoing off the Parisian walls. You destroyed my channel. Threatened me with legal action. Tried to force me into submission. And look how well you've landed on your feet. She smiled, all teeth. Thanks to our motivation. Mother, Eric warned, but she waved him off. The family name still carries weight, she continued. We could help with the Netflix project. Open doors. Make introductions. I walked to my window, looking out at the Eiffel Tower in the distance. Why are you really here? The firm's struggling, Eric admitted quietly. Your story. It resonated with people. Clients are asking questions about how we handled things. So this isn't about reconciliation, I turned back to them. It's about damage control. It's about family, Lorraine insisted. About putting the past behind us and moving forward. Together. My phone buzzed, a reminder about today's shoot. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was supposed to be filming a segment about women reclaiming their power. You know what the biggest lesson of all this has been? I moved to my filming setup, adjusting the camera. Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones most afraid of your success. What are you doing? Eric stepped forward. Creating content. I hit record. Tell me, Lorraine, why did you really come to Paris? To support me? Or because your son's firm is bleeding clients after trying to silence a woman for choosing her career over conformity? Turn that off, she snapped, mask cracking. No. I stood straighter. You wanted to be part of my story? Here's your chance. Tell my viewers why you thought destroying someone's dreams was an acceptable form of family love. This is ridiculous. Eric moved toward the camera, but I blocked him. Touch my equipment and I'll add harassment to the documentary I'm making about toxic family dynamics. I'm sure Netflix will love that angle. Lorraine stood, composure finally shattering. You ungrateful. Grateful. I let my voice rise, knowing the camera caught every word. For what? For teaching me that true family supports instead of suppresses? For showing me that success is the best revenge? Thank you, truly. I couldn't have built this new life without your attempts to destroy my old one. Eric, Lorraine turned to her son. Are you going to let her speak to us this way? But Eric was staring at me, really seeing me maybe for the first time. You never needed our help, did you? No, I said softly. I only needed you to believe in me. Both of you. But you couldn't handle a version of me that didn't fit your mold. This isn't over. Lorraine grabbed her bag. Actually, it is. I gestured to the door. My crew will be here soon to film. Unless you'd like to stay and explain to them why you're here. They left without another word, but as the door closed, I heard Lorraine's sharp intake of breath. Through the window, I watched them hurry past the cafe where my camera crew was already setting up. I touched my phone, stopping the recording. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about letting people witness their own toxicity, perfectly framed and in focus. 1 year later, I stood in front of a packed auditorium in New York, preparing to screen the final episode of my Netflix series. The show had exceeded everyone's expectations, becoming a rallying cry for women fighting to define success on their own terms. Mia sat in the front row, beaming, while Jackson filmed from the side, probably for his own documentary about independent creators. The energy in the room crackled with anticipation. Then I saw her slip in through the back door. Lorraine, looking smaller somehow, clutching a familiar leather-bound notebook I recognized from her college days. The art portfolio she'd never shown anyone. I began my introduction. A year ago, I thought losing everything meant the end of my story. Instead, it was just the beginning. The lights dimmed, and the episode began to play. Afterward, during the Q&A, a young woman stood up. What would you say to the people who tried to stop you? Before I could answer, another voice cut through the crowd. Lorraine had made her way to the microphone. I can answer that, she said, her voice wavering. Because I was one of them. The room went silent. My heart pounded as she opened her portfolio, pulling out a yellowed piece of paper. 40 years ago, I got accepted to art school in Paris. Her hands shook. My mother tore up the acceptance letter. Said proper women don't abandon their families for foolish dreams. She looked directly at me. I became the very thing I hated because it was easier than admitting I was wrong. I gripped the podium, unsure whether this was another manipulation or something real. The firm filed for bankruptcy last month, she continued. Eric's starting over at a smaller company. He's happier, actually. Away from my influence. She managed a small smile. Your success didn't destroy us, Avery. It freed us. After the event, I found her waiting by the exit, clutching her portfolio like a shield. These are good, I said, glancing at the sketches she'd finally shared. Really good. I'm taking classes now, she admitted. Local art studio. Baby steps. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know that your revenge wasn't just about proving us wrong. It was about proving that it's never too late to be right. She handed me an envelope. I wrote this months ago, but never had the courage to send it. Later that night, in my hotel room, I opened her letter. Pages of confessions, regrets, and finally, understanding. The last line caught in my throat. Thank you for showing me that the dreams we bury don't die. They just wait for someone brave enough to dig them up again. My phone buzzed with a text from Eric. Saw your finale. You were right. About everything. I'm sorry it took losing you to find myself. I didn't respond, but I did open my laptop and start typing. Dear followers, let me tell you a story about revenge. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that rebuilds. The kind that shows others how to break free from their own cages. Mia called as I was finishing the post. You okay? That was intense with Lorraine. Yeah, I looked out at the New York skyline. You know what's funny? I spent so long trying to prove them wrong, I never considered that maybe what they needed was someone to prove it was okay to change. So what's next for the great Avery Quinn? I smiled, thinking of Lorraine's art portfolio, Eric's new start, and my own journey. I'm thinking of doing a series about late bloomers. People finding their passion after everyone told them it was too late. Revenge by inspiration? Mia laughed. Very you. No, I corrected her, watching the sun set over the city. Not revenge. Revolution. Sometimes the best endings aren't about winning or losing. They're about everyone finding their own path to freedom, even the ones who tried to clip your wings. Because in the end, the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong. It's in proving to yourself that you were right all along.
I took a seat on the worn-out, ancient couch, which had formerly been a source of amusement and late-night viewings. It served just as a memento of a simpler, more joyous era in the past. The weight of the past was thick on the room surrounding me. My 4-year-old daughter, Anna, was sound asleep upstairs, her soft breathing a sharp contrast to the tense atmosphere that had descended upon our house. When I looked at the clock, it was already after 11:00 p.m. Charles was running late again, as was his custom. The stillness was eventually broken by the sound of the key turning in the lock. I straightened up, not sure why I still bothered, but out of habit I smoothed down my shirt. I quietly cried out, "Charles," as he entered, appearing to be a stranger rather than the person I had known. "You're late." He grumbled without looking at me. "Work." His voice seemed chilly and distant today, after earlier being warm and kind. I made an effort to seem casual, but a knot started to form in my chest. "Today, Anna had inquired about you. She was curious as to when her father would return home." He casually hung his coat on the hanger after shrugging it off. Children have many questions. That does not imply that we always know the solutions. His lack of concern hurt. The knot in my throat was swallowed. Maybe this weekend, the three of us could do something. That would be adored by Anna. Charles sneered, contempt seeping from his voice. "A trip with the family? With all that's happening? Betty, don't be so innocent." As I talked, my hands quivered a little, as if I was struggling to hang on to the discussion. "Charles, I was not married to this person. It's crucial, Charles. Her father is necessary to her." Without even glancing at me, he strolled to the refrigerator and took out a bottle. "What she needs is a miracle, not me pretending to be a happy family at the park." Tears began to fill up in my eyes. "Charles, she's your daughter. How come you're so chilly?" He drank deeply from the bottle, his eyes concentrated on everything but me. "Betty, I'm being practical. A sick child in a home that feels more like a hospital. This isn't the life I wanted." Emotion rising in my voice, I followed him into the kitchen. "How about me? Do you really think I like to see our daughter suffer? Do you believe I'm living the life I've always wanted?" The sound of Charles slamming the beer bottle against the counter reverberated through the strained quiet. "Honestly, Betty, I have no idea. But I'm aware that I'm out of luck." I was filled with rage. "You ought to walk away from your child." In one swallow, he drained the last of his drink. "I require room. This is too much suffocating for me." "Suffocation?" I echoed, shocked. "Is that what your family is to you now?" He looked aside, tensed in his shoulders. "Betty's, it goes beyond that. Everything is centered around Anna's illness, including the many trips to the hospital, the debts she incurs, and everything else. This is not what I signed up for." I was stunned and just gazed at him. How could this harsh truth have become our love? "So Charles, what are your plans? Go from us? Go somewhere else and start over?" He merely went by me, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood floor, without answering. I stood there feeling angry, heartbroken, and deeply betrayed. A storm of emotions was building inside of me. Charles's TV was making a faint sound from the other room as I laid in bed later that night, the space next to me chilly and empty. Our gap had been too big for us to overcome, and I couldn't help but worry whether it would ever be able to. The guy I had married, the father of my kid, had once seemed warm and familiar, but now he seemed like a stranger living with me. Our house, usually a warm and cozy place, was a far cry from the antiseptic hospital room where our daughter Anna lay on a little bed, her little chest rising and falling rhythmically. I sat by her side and clutched her little hand, taking comfort in her quiet sleep. With a professional and pleasant expression on her face, Nurse Sharon entered the room. "How's our brave girl doing today, Betty?" she said. I forced a tired grin. She's a fighter, always has been. Sharon moved quickly and gently to check Anna's vitals. Here, she is in capable hands. She gave me assurance that the surgical staff is among the finest. I nodded, a knot in my throat from concerns I was unable to express. I am aware. All I want is for Charles to be here more. She is requesting him nonstop. Sharon shot me a pitying glance. Fathers often find it hard to cope with these situations, but you're doing an amazing job. Loneliness weighed heavily on me. You know, it's challenging to do it alone. Simply put, he has changed. Charles appeared as though he was meant to, and his presence was not as consoling as I had imagined. His expression was impenetrable as he looked at me and then at Anna. "How is she?" "The same," I said, attempting to maintain my composure. He avoided making eye contact as he fiddled with his phone. "I have to go soon. Work is insane." I felt a sudden burst of rage. Work, right, because that's what's important right now. Charles raised his head, his eyes icy. "Betty, what do you want from me? To observe her sleep from here?" I swallowed a backhanded remark and kept my eyes on Anna. "Charles, she asked for you today. Her father is missing." He shrugged, his detachment forming a tangible barrier between us. "I'm here, aren't I?" Before I could respond, Anna stirred, her voice weak but clear. "Daddy?" Charles's face softened momentarily as he moved closer to her. "Hey, princess. Daddy's here." Anna smiled faintly, reaching out to him. "Stay with me, Daddy." The mix of hope and sorrow in my heart grew as Charles hesitated and then sat on the edge of the bed. "I can't stay long, Anna. Daddy has to work." Her smile faded, an understanding far beyond her years in her eyes. "It's okay, Daddy. I love you." Charles forced a smile, patting her hand. "I love you too, kiddo." As he stood to leave, I felt a surge of resentment. "She needs you, Charles. We need you." He paused, his back to us. "I'm doing what I can, Betty," but his words rang hollow in the sterile room. I watched him leave, a familiar sense of abandonment settling over me. Anna's hand gripped mine, her small presence a reminder of the fight ahead of us. The room fell silent again, save for the beeping of the monitors. I leaned closer to Anna, whispering promises of better days. Promises I wasn't sure I could keep. But in that moment, all I had was hope and the unwavering love for my daughter. The silence was broken by a call from my friend Marilyn, a local realtor. I sat in the dimly lit hospital cafeteria, clutching a lukewarm cup of coffee, my mind a whirlwind of betrayal and shock. Marilyn slid into the seat across from me, her expression a mix of concern and urgency. "Charles is selling our house, our home," she said. Anger and disbelief swirled within me, fueling a determination I hadn't felt in months. Under the dim lights of the hospital cafeteria, Marilyn, my longtime friend and a dedicated realtor, revealed the shocking news that shook me to the core. "Betty, I can't believe he's going this far, selling your house while you're anchored here with Anna." I inhaled sharply, my hands quivering as I struggled to calm myself. "Marilyn, please try to delay the sale. I need some time to figure this out." Her expression hardened with determination. I'll do everything I can, Betty, but you need to know he's insisting on closing the sale quickly. I leaned in, my voice steady with newfound resolve. He won't succeed without a fight. He thinks he can just erase our lives, start anew with her. Marilyn squeezed my hand in solidarity. What's your plan, Betty? The word plan echoed in my head, igniting a fire within me. For too long, I'd been passive, a spectator in my own life, overshadowed by Charles's growing indifference. No more. I'm taking a stand, I declared. First thing tomorrow, I'm meeting with a lawyer. We'll find a way to halt the sale. Encouragement lit up Marilyn's face. That's the spirit. Fight for what's yours, Betty. I'm with you every step. I nodded, my spirit bolstered by her support. I'll also need solid evidence, proof of his duplicity, any fraudulent dealings, anything that will strengthen our case. We'll start with scrutinizing the sale details, Marilyn proposed. I'll gather all the information I can on the buyer and any irregularities in the deal. I took a bitter sip of my coffee, its harshness mirroring the turmoil inside me. After all we've been through, I can't believe he's capable of this, to Anna, to me. Marilyn's hand tightened around mine, her voice filled with resolve. He's a coward for underestimating your strength, Betty, and he'll soon realize his mistake. Rising from our seats, my determination solidified. He'll regret this, Marilyn. He'll regret harming Anna and trying to steal our home. I'll see to that. Marilyn stood by me, fierce and unwavering. Let's turn the tables on him, Betty. Let's show him he messed with the wrong woman. Concealed just outside the realtor's office, my heart raced as I eavesdropped on the meeting inside. Charles was there, smooth-talking the potential buyers with his usual charisma. His mistress's laughter echoed, carefree and unaware of the storm she was part of. I observed as Charles confidently presented the paperwork. This house is a gem, an absolute steal at this price, he boasted. The interested couple, eager yet cautious, nodded as they perused the documents. Everything appears to be in order, the wife commented. Charles's mistress, decked in vibrant red lipstick, chuckled, leaning in close. See, easy as pie, she murmured audibly. My anger flared, but I remained focused on the task at hand. This was about gathering damning evidence. The husband glanced up inquiringly. And the owner is on board with all this. Charles' reply came swiftly, a lie so effortless it seemed almost truthful. Absolutely. She's ready to move on, eager to sell quickly. My fist clenched at his blatant falsehood, my nails digging into my palms as I resisted the urge to storm in. Marilyn, ever the ally in my scheme, smoothly interjected. If you're ready, we can finalize this sale right now. The couple exchanged a glance and nodded. We can't pass this up. I watched in silent agony as they signed the documents, each stroke a strike against the life we had built. I remained stoic, aware that this was a moment for clear-headed action, not unchecked emotions. Charles's laughter echoed in the background, mingling with the clinking of glasses as he toasted to new beginnings with the buyers, his arm around his mistress. My entrance into the room was sudden, causing a ripple of shock and confusion among the guests. Enjoying yourself, Charles? My voice was calm, my presence bringing the celebration to an abrupt pause. His smile faltered. Betty, what are you doing here? His question hung in the air as I approached them with determined steps. I'm here to stop you from making a monumental mistake, I stated firmly. His mistress rolled her eyes dismissively. What are you talking about? The deal is done. I returned a smile, cold and devoid of any friendliness. Is it now? Because I don't recall agreeing to sell my house. The buyers exchanged uneasy glances. We were told everything was in order. The husband spoke, his voice laced with doubt. Charles attempted to regain control of the situation, stepping forward. Betty, you're confused. This is for the best. I shook my head, resolute. No, Charles, the only confusion here is yours if you think you can forge my signature and get away with it. Silence enveloped the room. Charles's complexion turned notably paler. You can't prove anything, he blurted defensively. From my bag, I produced a set of documents. Actually, I can, and I have. These are the real papers. What you have are forgeries. His mistress tugged at his arm, panic edging her voice. Charles, what's she talking about? Tell me this isn't true. But Charles was speechless, his usual suave demeanor shattered. At that moment, the door swung open, and 3 police officers entered. One of them addressed Charles directly. Charles Johnson, you're under arrest for fraud and forgery. The color drained from his face as he looked at me, disbelief etching his features. You called the cops. Yes, I did. I replied, my voice steady and unwavering. You broke the law, Charles, and you tried to steal my home. As the officers handcuffed him, his mistress began to sob, her makeup running. The buyers, sensing the gravity of the situation, quickly gathered their belongings, eager to remove themselves from the unfolding drama. One officer turned to me. We need your statement, ma'am. I nodded, feeling a surge of vindication. Of course, officer. As they led Charles away, he threw a glance back at me, a mix of anger and regret in his eyes. But I felt no sympathy for him. He had made his choice, and now he was facing the consequences. Marilyn, witnessing the scene, smiled at me approvingly. I returned the smile and exited the office, feeling a significant burden lift from my shoulders. I had stood up for myself and for Anna. This was just the beginning. After Charles's arrest, I found myself in the lawyer's office, surrounded by law books and the heavy scent of leather. Mr. Ronald, my attorney, was a no-nonsense man in his 50s. His face marked with lines of experience. He reviewed the file before him. Betty, your husband's actions have opened up a significant can of worms. The fraud charge is serious. I sat across from him, my hands clasped tightly. I know, Mr. Ronald, but I couldn't let him get away with it. Not after everything. He nodded, understanding in his gaze. I respect that. Now about the divorce and custody battle. You're in a strong position, but it won't be easy. I leaned forward, resolute. I'm ready for it. I have to do this for Anna. She deserves a stable home. He shuffled some papers. What about alimony and child support? Given Charles' likely incarceration, it's going to be complicated. I sighed, a mix of determination and sadness coloring my voice. The road ahead was daunting, but I was prepared to navigate it for the sake of my daughter. Anna is my top concern, and I only want what's best for her. As for Charles, he made his own decisions. Mr. Ronald gave me a firm look, his face etched with seriousness. Betty, you're a resilient woman. We'll ensure you and your daughter get the justice you deserve. Leaving his office, my phone rang. It was Charles. I hesitated but answered. What do you want, Charles? His voice, filled with urgency, reached me. Betty, I know I've made mistakes, but please don't keep Anna away from me. I stopped walking, anger building inside. Were you thinking of Anna when you tried to sell our house? When you were spending your days with someone else? He was silent. I lost my way, Betty, but I'm still her dad. I love her. Holding my phone tighter, I replied, love is more than just words, Charles. It's shown through actions. You've let us both down. His voice broke. I'll do anything to fix this. Please. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see. It's too late for that. You can see Anna, but only with supervised visits. That's final." He paused, then quietly accepted. The following days were a whirlwind. I spent most of my time making sure Anna felt loved and stable amid the turmoil. Her laughter soothed my broken heart. One afternoon, while Anna napped, Julie, my sister, called. "Hey, Betty, how are you coping?" Her voice always carried a blend of concern and strength. "I'm managing, Julie. It's tough, but I'm hanging in there." Julie was quiet for a moment. "I heard about Charles. I'm sorry, Betty, but I'm proud of you for standing your ground." I smiled weakly. "Thanks, Julie. It's hard, but Anna needs me now more than ever." Her tone softened. "And who's there for you, Betty?" Her question took me by surprise. Caught up in caring for Anna and the legal battle, I hadn't really considered my own needs. "I don't know, Julie. I haven't had the chance to think about myself." Julie's reply was firm. "You need to look after yourself, too. You can't pour from an empty cup." She was right. "I'll try, Julie. It's just all so overwhelming." You're not alone. Remember that. I'm here for you, always. The next day, I visited a therapist, Dr. Scott. His office was a welcoming space with gentle lighting and a comfy couch. He greeted me with a warm smile. "Betty, it's good to meet you. How can I help you today?" I took a deep breath and shared my worries and fears. "I just feel so lost, Dr. Scott. Everything I trusted has turned upside down." Dr. Scott nodded, his voice soft and understanding. "It's natural to feel this way after what you've experienced. It's essential to recognize that challenging times are just one chapter in the extensive narrative of your life, not the entirety of it." This notion struck a chord with me and sparked a period of gradual but meaningful changes as I began to rebuild my life. I found solidarity in a support group for single parents. Despite the initial nervousness of my first meeting, the sense of community was palpable as others shared their experiences. It was a relief to know I wasn't alone. The group leader welcomed me warmly, encouraging us to support and uplift each other. I shared my own experiences with the group. As I spoke, my voice was steady yet charged with emotion. The group members offered me looks of empathy and understanding. Afterward, Abigail, one of the group members, came over to speak with me. "Your story is inspiring, Betty. You're stronger than you realize," she said. Her words buoyed my spirits, and I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could transform this challenging chapter into a tale of resilience and hope. I sat in the quiet of an early morning at home, thinking back on the turbulent path that had led me to this peaceful moment. The divorce was legally concluded. Perched on my coffee table, the document signified a fresh phase of self-reliance. The court case had been exhausting. For our daughter Anna's steady future, I had battled my ex-husband Charles for a just portion of his assets. Charles was found guilty of fraud and had to deal with the repercussions of the court's decision in our favor. His accomplice, who had been duped by them, also received a harsh legal punishment. It was strange to watch Charles and his accomplice pointing fingers at one another. There was just blame, not regret. There was a bright spot, nevertheless, in spite of the confusion caused by the court cases and mental anguish. After her operation, Anna was back to her vivacious laughing, which filled our house with a warmth that had been missing for far too long. I thought about our future as I sipped my morning coffee, a future I had battled so hard for, and that now appeared bright and promising. My first focus and ray of hope was Anna. We had weathered a storm even more powerful than the last. I glanced at the pictures on the mantel. They showed us at the park, at the zoo, grinning broadly. These were more than simply pictures. They were representations of our resiliency and ability to have joy in the face of hardship. Anna suddenly raced into the room, her eyes gleaming with joy and her hair ruffled. She said excitedly, "Mommy, are we going to the park today?" I nodded, love brimming in my heart. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going to have a great day." She clapped her hands in joy, and her laughter echoed across the room. I came to the realization that these happy and recuperative moments were what really important when I watched her play. We had moved past the hardships, the suffering, and the treachery. A fresh trip, laughter and healing awaited on the road ahead. Mary here, I'm 30 years old. I recently became a first-time mommy. I'm learning how to balance all that comes with taking care of a baby at this wonderful yet demanding period. While I was thrilled to be spending my first few days at home with my infant child, they were also very demanding. I understood that having a kid would make things different, but I had no idea how difficult it would be to take care of my son, manage the house, and physically recuperate from giving birth. At home, everything was a little disorganized. The dishes were frequently left in the sink for longer than I would have liked, and laundry was mounting. I was always rushing about trying to take care of my infant, so it was difficult for me to find time for myself. One afternoon, as I was trying to soothe my baby who was weeping, the doorbell rang. I was taken aback to see my mother-in-law, Janet, waiting at the door as I hadn't anticipated her presence. As soon as she entered our living room, I saw that she was focusing on the mess. The toys strewn all over the place, the clutter, and the dirty dishes in the kitchen. I hadn't had time to clean up, so it wasn't exactly how I wanted her to view our house. Janet gave me a glance, and I could see concern mixed with judgment in her eyes. Janet replied, "I thought I'd come by to check on you," as she walked cautiously over a baby toy that was lying on the ground. "Jerry mentioned you might need some help." I said, "Thanks, Janet," attempting to sound composed despite how overwhelmed I felt. "Things are a bit crazy right now, but we're managing." Janet appeared unconvinced. I felt even more self-conscious when she entered the kitchen and heard the sound of dirty dishes clanking against one another. She said sternly, "Looks like you could use more than just a little help. Look at this mess. Do you intend to raise my grandchild in this manner?" Her comments hurt, and I experienced a wave of simultaneous emotions, including worry, grief, and resentment. Even though I was making every effort to stay up, it felt like nothing I was doing was adequate at that particular time. Attempting to pull my son closer to me, I said, "I'm doing the best I can," as though attempting to avoid her criticism. Janet grumbled, obviously unimpressed. "Mary, being a mother is about prioritizing, and right now it looks like you aren't prioritizing anything properly." Before I could finish my sentence, my husband Jerry entered the room. He saw the tension immediately and attempted to diffuse it. He came to my support and said, "Mom, Mary is doing an amazing job. It's been really tough, especially with the baby not sleeping well." Janet didn't calm down. Instead, she gave Jerry a serious glance. "You have to explain to her what's crucial in this situation. Being responsible involves more than simply keeping the house tidy. She isn't upholding the expectations of her family." Jerry appeared to be caught in the midst. Unsure of what to say, he glanced at his mother and then back at me. "Mom, let's postpone this for now. Mary is still getting better," he stated. But Janet interrupted him. She raised her voice and remarked, "That's precisely the time when discipline needs to be taught. She will benefit more in the long run if she learns how to manage things now. You can't treat her too lightly." Jerry thought for a moment before stating, "Maybe you're right, Mom," which shocked me. Perhaps Mary really must learn the hard way. It was like though my spouse had punched me in the stomach. Considering how hard I was trying, I was shocked that he would support his mother. Janet nodded emphatically, as though she'd won the debate, saying, "Show her that this kind of behavior can't be tolerated." She shoved Jerry in my direction. I was feeling so overwhelmed at the time. It wasn't only the physical tiredness or the disarray in the house. It was also the sense that those who were meant to be my supporters were passing judgment on and misinterpreting me. Even though I was trying my hardest and that motherhood was difficult enough, Janet seemed to need more. I learned that day how crucial it is to surround yourself with people who are sympathetic to the struggles faced by new mothers. It's about trying your best, even when things feel overwhelming, and surrounding yourself with people who encourage you rather than depress you. It's not only about keeping the house tidy or upholding family standards. Jerry's palm brushed my cheek before I could even blink. Loud and startling, the boom reverberated around the room. I will always remember that instance, a boundary that ought to have never been crossed. I held our baby boy close, his cries mixing with the sound of my racing heartbeat. "Jerry, what are you doing?" I managed to ask through tears. The pain from the slap was nothing compared to the pain of betrayal. I couldn't believe this was happening. "This is for your own good, Mary," Jerry said, his voice flat and empty. He didn't even look me in the eyes. "You need to learn." The room fell silent. The only sound was the soft whimpers of our son. Jerry glanced at me, his face showing a mix of frustration and embarrassment, but it didn't feel like an apology. Janet, his mother, stood there with a stern expression, not saying a word, but her presence alone was enough to make things worse. She didn't move, didn't flinch. She just stood there, watching as if she had expected this to happen. What was supposed to be a visit to help me had turned into something else entirely. Instead of support, I got judgment, and now this slap that shook my entire world. It was like everything I thought I knew about family was crumbling around me. As Janet prepared to leave, she whispered something to Jerry at the door. I couldn't hear all of it, but her smug look and Jerry's troubled face told me it wasn't anything kind. I could feel the coldness in the air, and it made my heart sink even more. That night, after the chaos of the day, I rocked my son to sleep, trying to soothe him as much as myself. But the fear and dread wouldn't leave me. What was supposed to be a loving family now felt like something else entirely. It felt like I was being judged, like I was on trial, and I was failing in their eyes. As I held my son close, I made a decision. I needed to get out, not just for my safety, but for his too. The house that once felt like a home now felt like a prison built by the very people who were supposed to love and protect us. I realized that this wasn't a place where I could raise my son safely. Jerry had crossed a line, and I couldn't trust him anymore, especially with his mother's influence always lurking in the background. That night, I couldn't bear to sleep next to Jerry. Instead, I took my baby to the nursery, a small room that had become my sanctuary in the past few weeks. As I sat in the rocking chair holding my son, the events of the day played over and over in my mind. Each time I thought about it, the pain and betrayal grew stronger. I knew that I couldn't stay. The next morning, while Jerry was at work and Janet was thankfully gone, I made a call. Maria, a close friend who had offered her help before, answered quickly. "Jess, it's me." "I need the help you offered," I said, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and determination. "Say no more, Mary. I'll come by today with my truck. We can move your things to my place until you figure out where you want to go," Maria responded, her voice calm and reassuring. We came up with a simple but risky plan. During the day, I would pack as much as I could, just the essentials for my son and me. Maria would come by in the evening, and we would quietly move everything out before Jerry came home. I knew I couldn't face him again, not after what had happened. It was dangerous to stay, and I couldn't risk him or Janet finding out what I was planning. As I packed, my heart raced, but I knew it was the right thing to do. This wasn't just about me. I had to protect my son and give him the safe, loving environment he deserved. I couldn't let him grow up in a house where violence was acceptable, where control and manipulation were the norms. Leaving was hard, but staying would have been harder. This was the beginning of a new chapter for us, one where I could finally breathe, and my son could grow up in peace. I stood there, thinking about what would happen if I faced Jerry again. He might try to apologize, or worse, Janet might convince him to continue controlling me. I couldn't let that happen. I knew I had to leave. All day as I packed my things, every baby outfit and toy felt heavy with memories. I couldn't stop thinking about the life I had imagined, the family I had wanted to build with Jerry. But the sharp memory of Jerry's slap and Janet's cold, judgmental eyes reminded me that staying wasn't an option anymore. By late afternoon, most of my things were packed into boxes. I hid everything in the garage, trying to stay calm and focused. Maria, my best friend, arrived just as the sun began to set. Her arrival felt like a glimmer of hope in what had been one of the hardest days of my life. "Are you ready?" Maria asked as she stepped inside, looking at the boxes and bags scattered around. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, holding my baby boy a little closer to my chest. I had to do this for him, for both of us. We moved quickly, loading everything into our truck. We worked silently but efficiently, as if we had done this 100 times before. The last room I packed was the nursery. It had been my little sanctuary, the only place in the house where I had felt safe and at peace. I took one last look around, saying a quiet goodbye to the life I had dreamed of having with Jerry, but I knew now that this dream was over. As we drove away, I watched the house fade in the rearview mirror. A chapter in my life was closing, and though my heart felt heavy, I also felt a flicker of hope. My baby slept peacefully in his car seat, unaware of the big change happening. But finally, I knew he was safe. This was the first night of our new life, a life where fear and manipulation no longer had control over us. When we arrived at Maria's place, I felt a wave of relief. Her home was filled with warmth and safety, a stark contrast to the oppressive feeling that had taken over my own home. Being there made me even more determined to make sure Jerry and Janet couldn't hurt us again. I realized that simply leaving wasn't enough. I needed to ensure that they couldn't twist the story in their favor or ever put someone else through what I had experienced. I started by reaching out to family and friends, pretending I just wanted to catch up. During these conversations, I carefully gathered bits of information, slyly recording any mentions of Janet's controlling behavior or Jerry's strange willingness to follow her lead. Some people were hesitant to talk, but many hadn't realized how deep Janet's manipulation ran. Over time, I began to collect text messages, voicemails, and even recorded calls that painted a clear picture of what was really happening behind closed doors. The most valuable piece of evidence came when I managed to record a video of Janet coaching Jerry on how to control me. Her words made it clear that this wasn't about concern or love. It was about power and control. Once I had gathered enough evidence, I decided it was time to confront them. I chose a family gathering hosted by Jerry's sister. It was a neutral place with plenty of family members present. Some of them had already hinted that they were uncomfortable with the way Janet dominated the family, so I hoped this would be the right time and place to reveal the truth. On the day of the gathering, I was nervous. My hands shook and my heart raced, but I knew this had to be done. I arrived with Maria by my side, her support giving me the strength to go through with it. As I walked into the room, I could feel the tension. People greeted me with quiet murmurs, but everyone seemed to know something was off. Word about Jerry and Janet's behavior had spread through the family, and even the relatives who lived far away had heard rumors. After the initial greetings, I took a deep breath and prepared myself for what was to come. It was time to show everyone who Jerry and Janet really were and to finally take control of my life again. I stood up, my hands shaking, but my voice was steady. "I have something important to say," I began as everyone in the room turned to look at me. I could feel all eyes on me, but I knew this had to be done. It's about Jerry and his mother Janet, and how their actions have affected not just me and my son, but the whole family. Jerry looked shocked, and I could see the fear in his eyes as he tried to stop me. "Mary, let's not do this here," he said, trying to interrupt. But I didn't back down. "No," I replied, pulling out my phone. "This is not just a personal issue." I connected my phone to the Bluetooth speaker, and the room fell silent. The recordings began to play. Janet's cold, controlling voice telling Jerry how to handle me, and Jerry's hesitant agreements. It was all there, plain as day, their plans to fix my behavior. The reactions in the room were immediate. Some people looked shocked, others disgusted. Jerry's aunt, who had always been kind to me, looked heartbroken. She turned to Janet, her voice shaking. "Is this true, Janet? Were you really forcing Jerry to do this?" Janet's face turned red with anger and fear. "These are taken out of context," she snapped, trying to defend herself, but it was too late. Jerry's cousin, who had been quietly observing until now, stood up. "No, they aren't out of context. We've seen signs of this for years, but we didn't want to believe it." That moment changed everything. Family members began to speak up, sharing their own experiences with Janet's controlling ways. Slowly, a picture emerged of a woman who had manipulated her family for years, hiding behind the role of a caring mother. Jerry sat there in silence, looking pale and overwhelmed, finally seeing the truth about his mother's control over his life. As the family meeting turned into a heated discussion about Janet's influence, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. The truth was out. It wasn't just me who saw it. Now everyone in the room knew. The family who had been under Janet's control for so long finally saw her manipulations for what they were. After the confrontation, there was a quiet, somber feeling in the air. The family, long under Janet's influence, now had to come to terms with what had been going on for years. The shock was clear on their faces, and it was uncomfortable for everyone to realize how deeply Janet had affected their lives. For me, the decision to leave Jerry was painful, but it was also necessary. After everything that had happened, there was no going back. As the family began to leave, I gathered my son, who was blissfully unaware of the storm around him. With one last look at the family home, I stepped into the unknown, knowing I was doing the right thing for us. Jerry watched us leave, his face filled with sadness and regret. His voice, once so familiar, now felt distant as he whispered a weak goodbye. I didn't look back. Janet, on the other hand, faced a much harsher reality. The family she had controlled for so long now saw her for who she really was. They began to distance themselves, realizing how much harm her actions had caused. Her attempts to regain control went unheard. The evidence from the recordings and the testimonies at the gathering had been too much for anyone to ignore. In the weeks that followed, Jerry tried to reach out to me. His messages were full of apologies, promises of change, and pleas for forgiveness. But the memory of his raised hand and his mother's influence over him was too much to forget. The trust between us had been broken, and with it, our marriage. I knew then that this was the end of one chapter and the beginning of a new one. I wasn't just leaving a bad situation. I was starting a new life, one where I could be free from control and fear and focus on raising my son in a safe, loving environment. I moved to a little apartment that was distant from the neighborhood I knew as home. There, no one was aware of my history, and I could start anew free from the burden of it all. My close friend Maria supported me during this new phase of my life. Her assistance was much appreciated as I worked to create a life that felt secure for my kid and me. My days were straightforward yet very intentional. I devoted much of my time to my son's care and to gradually reassembling my life. The mending process hurt more than I anticipated at times, and it wasn't always simple or quick. Even though I didn't always feel like I could handle everything that had happened, I was able to go on because I was free to choose without worrying about being dictated to or tricked. It seemed like an opportunity for a new beginning, to live life as I saw fit. I began attending therapy where I was taught how to get over my emotional scars. In order to feel less alone, I also attended support groups for single moms, where I was able to connect with people who had experienced similar things. The shattered bits of my former self started to reassemble over time. But I had changed. I was stronger and more resilient than I had ever been. I was now capable of defending my own interests and shielding my son from danger. My son's laughter became my compass, enabling me to get through the most trying times. I was ecstatic to watch him develop and reach new heights. Every tiny victory gave me greater hope for the future. I noticed that as he gained mobility in speech, my confidence increased as well. I was learning how to be a fearless woman, a mother, and how to create a secure and caring household. A year had elapsed before my eyes after several months of waiting. One evening, I took a seat in our comfortable living room after putting my kid to bed. It was stuffed full of his toys and drawings, mementos of the contented life we were creating together. I couldn't help but notice how much progress we had made. Though it wasn't as intense as it had been in the past, the agony of the past was still present, like a shadow. The promise of fresh starts shone brightly, and I found strength in my son's unwavering love and in the encouragement of friends like Maria. I realized that night, while sipping my tea, that I was finally ready to tell my tale. In order to write about the experiences I had experienced, I established a blog. It was not only for myself, it was also for other people who could be facing comparable difficulties. I wanted to reach out and let others who were being abused or manipulated know they weren't alone. With each blog post I published, I moved closer to being someone who could help others and further away from the victim I once was. Thinking back on my trip, I saw that I had developed into an advocate. I was speaking out against the type of manipulation and control I had previously been subjected to because I had discovered my voice. My narrative was one of tenacity, of rising above adversity and finding strength inside. Now that I've told you my tale, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question. Do you think it's possible to completely escape the grip of a controlling family? Or do such connections' consequences always linger? Please share your opinions and experiences in the comments section. Let's continue this discussion and provide each other support. Mary, sweetheart, where are you? I made the call as soon as I got home. I could hear my child crying, even though I couldn't see her. The home was filled with a calming sound. There was a significant issue. When I eventually found her in her room, I was astounded. My kid got her whole head cut because she loved her long, beautiful hair. Honey, what happened? Who has the blame for this? My voice quivered as I could already feel my rage growing. Her next statement made my blood boil. It was Grandma. Mom, Mary's red eyes filled with tears as she sobbed. She said I looked like a troublemaker with my hair and shaved it all off by force. That was the first time I had ever felt a combination of shock, agony, and rage like that. I swore at that very moment to exact revenge. Salutations, my name is Julie. I work full-time as a 38-year-old single mother. Mary, my 15-year-old daughter, is my entire world. We live in a simple, modest house in the suburbs. It's our sanctuary, even if it's not very elegant. Fourth, between my hard nursing hours, I put forth endless effort to make sure we have a roof over our heads and food on the table. Although no one ever promised an easy life, it's not easy. Mary is a creative and intellectual whirlwind. Her lovely curls make even Rapunzel jealous, and she loves to show off her uniqueness with them. If it were just the two of us, life would be wonderful. Nevertheless, a dark cloud blocks out our peace. Lauren, my former mother-in-law, resides way too close to us. Lauren is a 72-year-old widow with a sharp tongue. She helps look after Mary after school, and for that I know I should be thankful, but the price is constant criticism. Every time she says, "Julie, dear," it pisses me off and makes my skin crawl. Don't you think Mary's hair is a bit wild? Taking a big breath, I said, "She likes it that way." Lauren, I want to yell, but I'm trying not to stress out. Sounds like a medieval queen. Girls knew how to present themselves in my day, she says. I bite my tongue again, not wanting to say what I really want to. I can't afford to lose my access to free childcare. Therefore, I want to scream out. The fact that Lauren treated Mary's father, her own son, so harshly just makes things worse. Still, he made the wrong turn. Kyle, the man I married, was raised in a strict household by his mother. Lauren, who raised him with a firm hand, believed that hard punishment would aid in his character development. He was never allowed to be himself or make his own choices. It was she who assessed everything he did. As a child, Kyle refused to do whatever his mother asked of him. He defied orders and made bad decisions that finally got him into trouble. As he is now jailed, Mary is fatherless. Lauren, of course, blames Kyle's bad luck on me and the entire world. She acts as if I ruined her child by forcing him to lead such a life. But in reality, Kyle was pushed away by Lauren's tyrannical rule. She is now attempting to hurt my child by venting her anger in the same manner that she did to Mary and me. For Lauren, Mary is a second chance to shape someone into her perfect self, and it's my responsibility to stand in her way. Lauren first begged for help with Mary. She contended that, as a grandmother, she was entitled to participate in her life and make up for lost time. Julie, I want to be engaged in my granddaughter's life, even though I realize I'm old. Almost imploringly, she would implore, "Let me help." A part of me believed her, admitting that I was in need of assistance. Having someone step in, even if it was Lauren, felt like a huge relief, especially because I was a single parent and worked hectic shifts at the hospital. I wished she were real, that maybe she might do Mary some good. I took her criticism to be only a reflection of who she was, and help is help, right? But every day I regret my decision more and more. Lauren gradually imposed her rules, expectations, and judgments on our lives. She began to feel unwelcome. Just as with Kyle, she was trying to be in charge instead of being helpful. And everyone knows what will happen. Isabella is a close friend and coworker, which is a blessing. She is my rock of support. How do you deal with that old witch? She asked me the other day over coffee, trying to lighten the tone of our conversation by adding sugar to her cup. She said, "Julie, you have the patience of a saint." Still, I laughed a tired chuckle. Isabella, I'm becoming antsy. It's really becoming gloomy. Paul, another neighbor of mine, is always eager to help out around the house. He's a real hunk, to be honest, and the way he stares at me makes me wonder if I may have gotten away with it the first time around with Mary's father. But after the nightmare that was that relationship, my new rule is to just stay out of it. "Hey, Julie, need a hand?" Paul calls from the street. Here he comes, wearing a tight shirt and flashing his easy smile. I try not to stare at his biceps as he lifts some boxes from the garage. "Thanks, Paul, you're a lifesaver," I say, but in my head, I'm thinking, and a temptation I really don't need right now. But let's focus on the real drama in my life, which isn't handsome neighbors. It's the ongoing Cold War between Lauren and me. The battleground. Mary's upbringing. Mary, sit up straight. A young lady doesn't slouch. Lauren barks in the middle of dinner, like she's training my daughter for the military. I see Mary's shoulders drop, and my heart sinks. "Mom, do I have to listen to her?" Mary asks quietly, tired of it all. I glance at Lauren, silently letting her know that this fight isn't over. "Just do your best, darling," I say, trying to comfort Mary. We all have different ideas about what's important. My voice sharpens as I look at Lauren. Different ideas. Yes, Lauren mutters with that superior tone that makes me want to scream. "If you listened to me, Julie, this girl wouldn't be running wild." I clench my fists under the table, trying not to lose it then and there. She's not running wild, Lauren. She's expressing herself, and I won't stop her from doing that. My tone is sharper than I intended, but I'm at the end of my rope. Lauren, as always, stays calm and cold. Mark my words, Julie, without discipline, that girl will end up in trouble. I watch as Mary goes to her room, her curls bouncing, curls I wouldn't be seeing for much longer. A shiver runs down my spine. I've been holding this situation together for so long, but something inside me is screaming that it's about to blow, and it's going to be ugly. After a long, extra shift at the hospital, all I wanted was to come home, hug Mary, and forget about Lauren for a while. But as soon as I walked through the door, I felt it. Something was terribly wrong. "Mary, sweetheart, I'm home." I called out, but there was no answer. The silence was thick, creeping over me like a bad feeling. It was the kind of silence that only comes right before something awful happens. I ran to her room, and when I opened the door, my heart stopped. Mary was curled up on the bed, sobbing, her whole body shaking with her tears. When she finally looked up at me, I nearly collapsed. Her beautiful curls were gone, not a single strand of hair was left. Her head was shaved all the way to the scalp. "Mom," Mary cried, running into my arms. "Grandma did this while I was sleeping." I held her tight, trying not to fall apart right there. "My love, everything's going to be okay." "We'll fix this," I whispered, but inside, I was burning with anger. My mind screamed, how dare that woman do this to my daughter? Furious, I stormed into the living room like a hurricane. Lauren was sitting there, calm as ever, acting like nothing had happened, cool as a cucumber. "My daughter," I yelled, my voice echoing through the house. "What the hell have you done?" I was trembling with rage, but Lauren didn't even flinch. "I did what needed to be done," she replied, her voice calm, as if what she'd done was perfectly reasonable. That girl was becoming too vain and disobedient. Truly, I almost laughed at how absurd her words were. Vain. Disobedient? She's 15. "Lauren, what on earth are you talking about?" "It's time she learned some discipline," Lauren said with her usual coldness, as if she were laying down some unarguable fact. In my day, girls who cared too much about their looks, who spent time in front of the mirror like Mary, ended up lost. You think it's just hair, but that's how it starts. Today it's curls, tomorrow it's makeup and fancy clothes. Before you know it, she'll be pregnant and ruined. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Pregnant? Lost? Mary is 15. I shouted, completely stunned. Lauren kept talking like she was quoting some outdated manual from 1948. My body trembled with anger, my voice shaky from the hatred I was trying to hold back. She's a child, not a grown woman. What you did isn't discipline. It's cruelty. Don't be naive, Lauren said, shaking her head in disapproval. If you keep letting her be vain, giving her all this freedom, she'll end up just like her father, lost, with no direction or morals. That was it. I snapped. Shut up, I screamed. This isn't your time, you old witch. You shaved her head against her will. That's not discipline. It's abuse. And I'm calling the police. Lauren laughed a dry, bitter laugh, like someone who thinks they're above everyone else. The sound filled the room. Oh, Julie, don't be so dramatic. You're weak. You always have been. I've tolerated your soft parenting for too long. Someone had to step in before Mary turned into a delinquent. She was heading down the same wrong path as her father, and you didn't even notice, Lauren said coldly. That was the final straw. My already fragile self-control broke. My hands were shaking, and my whole body trembled with fury. How dare she compare Mary to Frank? As if it were my fault, as if I had failed. Get out of my house now. I yelled, unable to stop the tears rolling down my face. I will never let you touch my daughter again. Lauren, as cold as ever, calmly gathered her things without showing any regret. Mark my words, Julie, you will regret not listening to me, she said, her words dripping with venom. When the door finally closed behind her, my strength collapsed. The tears came freely now. I felt like I had failed to protect my daughter. But in that moment, I made a silent promise. Lauren would never have the power to hurt us again. Suddenly, a knock on the door startled me. It was Paul, my neighbor. He had a worried look, the kind only someone who truly cares about you could have. Julie, is everything okay? I heard shouting, he asked, concern in his voice. The moment he saw my face, he knew something terrible had happened. What happened? He asked softly but urgently. I couldn't find the words. I just pointed toward Mary's room. When Paul saw her, his eyes widened in shock. Oh my God, who did this? He whispered. Lauren, I muttered, my voice shaking with hatred, each word heavy with anger. Paul's expression changed from that of a friendly neighbor to someone ready for battle. This is unacceptable. I'm calling the police right now, he declared. No, Mary cried, her voice broken, her eyes filled with fear. I don't want anyone to see me like this. She curled up in my arms and I held her tightly, trying to shield her from the pain that had pierced her heart. It's okay, my love, I whispered, trying to comfort her. We won't do anything you don't want to do. I'm here. Paul knelt beside us, his face showing both deep concern and restrained anger. Is there anything I can do? He asked, his voice kind but firm, like someone who wouldn't tolerate injustice. Before I could answer, my phone vibrated. It was Isabella, my best friend. Her voice was full of worry. Julie, what's going on? I got your message, and it sounded like you were falling apart. I tried to speak, but the words barely came out between sobs. I told her what had happened. That witch. Isabella shouted over the phone, filled with rage on my behalf. I'm coming over right now. And before I could even catch my breath, there was another knock at the door. In just a few minutes, she was inside, arms full of bags, looking like a hero ready for battle. Okay, here's the plan, she said with determination, pulling out tissues, hats, and fashion magazines. I brought ideas for pixie cuts and some inspiration for colored streaks. We're going to fix this right now. Mary, still heartbroken, managed a small smile as Isabella got to work. At that moment, I realized how lucky I was to have a friend like her. Isabella was always the one who knew how to solve things with a practical approach and a bit of humor. Relax. Aunt Isabella is here to save the day. And if that old witch comes back, we'll deal with her. With a haircut and an axe, she joked, trying to lighten the mood. As Isabella worked on Mary's hair, making the best of what was left, Paul came closer, and I started to open up. I told him everything Lauren had done, every detail, every wound she had caused, not just to Mary, but to me as well. The guilt weighed heavy in my heart. I can't believe I let that woman get so close to my daughter, I whispered. The days that followed were a blur of tears, anger, and sleepless nights. Mary refused to leave her room, let alone go back to school. I called work, pretending I was sick. But the truth was, Mary needed me, and that was all that mattered. Our first stop was the police station, but frustration hit quickly. The officer, looking completely uninterested, said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but since there was no physical harm, this is a civil matter." Physical harm? I snapped before I could control myself. Look at my daughter. How can you say there's no physical harm? But it seemed the law was on Lauren's side. The injustice was right there, and I just wanted to scream. Our second stop was a lawyer's office. He listened carefully to our story and then said, "We can definitely pursue a claim for emotional damages." That small glimmer of hope was something. But I knew no legal action could truly heal the damage Lauren had done to Mary. Meanwhile, Paul had also been working quietly behind the scenes. "I have a friend who specializes in family law," he said one day, his eyes filled with determination. "He's willing to take your case pro bono." In that moment, I felt like maybe we weren't fighting this battle alone after all. I could have kissed him right then, but there wasn't time for that. Things were about to get even more complicated, and I knew I would need every bit of strength I had left. "We're going to bury that witch in paperwork," Paul said firmly. And with Isabella by my side, I knew I wasn't alone in this fight. First, the whispers started in the supermarket. I noticed neighbors giving me sideways glances and hushed murmurs. Then the phone calls began, mostly from distant relatives. "Julie, is it true you've been neglecting Mary?" One cousin asked, her voice dripping with judgment. That's when I realized Lauren wasn't just trying to hurt me. She was trying to destroy me. She had started a smear campaign, spreading rumors that I was an unfit mother. I collapsed onto the sofa next to Isabella and Paul, feeling the pressure weighing me down. "That witch is trying to turn everyone against me," I said, the lump in my throat growing stronger. But Lauren had underestimated me. If she wanted a war, she was going to get one. I decided to fight back. I started digging into Lauren's past, contacting her old friends and relatives. I needed to know if there was more she was hiding. What I found left me cold. One night, as I sat with Mary, she finally opened up to me, revealing what she had been holding back for so long. If I misbehaved, Grandma said she'd send me to a boarding school, Mary said, hesitating for a moment before continuing. Tears filled her eyes as she added, "She used to lock me in the closet when I did something wrong." My blood boiled. How had I not seen this sooner? How could I have let my daughter suffer like this? I hugged Mary tightly, my heart breaking with guilt and anger. "This is not your fault, sweetheart," I assured her. "Your grandmother will never hurt you again." With the help of Isabella and Paul, we started preparing for our next move. We set up hidden cameras around the house, creating a trap in case Lauren tried to contact us again. We even trained Mary, teaching her how to collect evidence without putting herself in danger. "Remember, Mary," Paul said gently but seriously as he showed her how to use the voice recorder on her phone. "If your grandmother calls or shows up, record everything. Leave no room for mistakes." We were ready. Lauren had no idea what was coming. I had been on the defensive for too long, but now it was my turn to fight back. Press this button as soon as necessary." "Understood," I said, looking Mary in the eyes. She nodded with a strength that both made me proud and broke my heart at the same time. "I won't let you down, Mom." "You could never let me down, my love," I replied, hugging her tightly. "We're in this together, all the way." The trap was set, and now we just had to wait for Lauren to make her next move. This time, I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to end this for good. The day of the trial finally came, and my stomach was in knots. The tension was unbearable. Mary squeezed my hand tightly as we walked into the courtroom. Her eyes were focused on the floor, but her determination gave me strength. "You can do this, Mom," she whispered. Her courage fueled me, giving me strength I didn't know I had. Our lawyer began presenting our case, and it was like a mountain of evidence was crashing down on Lauren. The footage from the hidden camera showed everything: her invading our home, her hateful words echoing in the courtroom. "You ungrateful brat. I'll teach you to never disobey me again." Her voice boomed from the recordings. The judge, who had stayed calm up until then, grew more serious with each vile word Lauren had spoken. But that was only the start. One by one, witnesses took the stand. Former family friends, Nanny, even Mary's old piano teacher. They all shared their stories. She told me if I didn't make Mary practice piano for 5 hours a day, she'd fire me, the teacher said, his voice shaking. The stories kept coming, building an airtight case against Lauren. But the most powerful moment was when Mary gave her testimony. My brave little girl stood there, her voice trembling but filled with determination. "If I told Mom what she did, she'd make sure I'd be taken away," Mary confessed, tears in her eyes. I couldn't hold back my own tears. Lauren's lawyer tried desperately to make her seem like a loving, misunderstood grandmother, but it was too late. The evidence was clear, and the court wasn't buying it. When the judge finally announced his decision, I felt like I could breathe again. "This court grants a permanent restraining order against the defendant," the judge said firmly. "Additionally, significant damages are awarded to cover therapy and emotional distress caused to the plaintiff." Lauren was officially out of our lives forever. As we left the courtroom, feeling lighter than I had in months, Lauren made one last pathetic attempt. She came toward us, tears streaming down her face, hoping for some kind of forgiveness. "Julie, Mary, I'm sorry," she began, her voice trembling. But I cut her off, my voice cold and firm. "Save your apologies, Lauren. You're dead to us." I turned away without looking back, and we walked away. In that moment, a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. We were free. The months that followed were hard, but we got through them together. Mary started therapy, and little by little, I saw my daughter come back to life. The sparkle in her eyes returned, and so did her strength. She was coming out of the shell she had been hiding in. One night at the dinner table with me, Isabella, Paul, and Mary, she made a surprising announcement. "I want to donate the settlement money," Mary said firmly. "I want to help other kids who've been through what I did." I smiled, proud of her strength. But as her words echoed in my mind, a plan started to form. Mary was healing, but I still carried the anger. Lauren had tried to destroy my daughter and ruin me, and I couldn't just let her get away with it. She needed to feel what we had felt. Lauren probably thought that because of the restraining order and distance limit, everything had been settled, and she could now live in peace. She was unaware that the real challenge had only begun. I began by feigning composure by avoiding conversation and confrontation. I made it seem to Lauren that we were out of her life and that the struggle was over. But behind the scenes, I was preparing for something greater. I used my insider knowledge of her prior indiscretions and secrets to my advantage. The woman who took pleasure in berating others had a past replete with small flaws, unpaid debts, fights in a financial scandal involving her late husband's assets. If anyone found out, that would destroy her reputation. Paul and Isabella assisted me in starting to remove those enigma layers. When one of Lauren's neighbors received an anonymous letter about the financial scandal, Lauren was first shocked. Not too long afterward, the condo's management office got a letter that was nearly exact to this one. Just hints and thoughts, nothing major, but enough to cast doubt on things and make her uncomfortable. Next, I got in touch with Lauren's former friend, whom she had tricked years before. By arranging an unplanned encounter, I urged the friend to divulge experiences that Lauren would want to keep private. It ended an already precarious relationship. Lauren's standing started to decline. But the final blow was the cruelest. Lauren depended on inspiring admiration and respect in everyone around her. With the walls closing in and her reputation ruined, she began to pull away. First, though, I informed them that she was having financial difficulties since her own late spouse had left her bankrupt. The incident made her a laughing figure in the social circles she was so active in. Eventually, Lauren found herself on her own, without the friends, reputation, or regard she had always taken for granted from everyone around her. She was wounded more than anything by her growing insignificance. After word spread of her death, Lauren tried to contact me, maybe seeking support. However, it was already the empathetic me from before. Mary was no longer vulnerable to protect. I was left to watch from a distance. She had tried to destroy my life, but in the end, she had destroyed her own. Thank you for listening to this story. I would be really interested in hearing your thoughts, so please leave a comment below with them. To view the upcoming stories, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm a 35-year-old financial advisor by the name of Grace. It was then that I met Jonathan, the man who would later leave me for another woman. I remember our first encounter quite clearly. With an expression of anxiety and a large stack of paperwork, he came into my office. He raised a hand in greeting. Grace, right. My name is Jonathan. I've heard you're the financial problem solver. I said, grinning, that's what they say. See if we can unravel yours by taking a peek. Jonathan was a tall man whose short brown hair complemented his warm, friendly eyes that never stopped smiling, even when his lips were sealed in a smile. Our chat drifted from the dull realm of numbers and taxes to our favorite movies, our favorite songs, and even heated arguments about whose pizza in town was the finest as we dug into his papers. With Jonathan's easygoing attitude, the time flew by. He quickly said, I never imagined sorting out my finances could be this fun. He chuckled when I jokingly referenced my magic touch and said, how about a coffee to thank you for making this experience far less dreadful than anticipated? Soon after, their coffee dates turned into dinners and weekend getaways. Jonathan proposed after 7 months, and I immediately said yes. Even though it seemed like a flashbulb romance, it was ideal for us. Our nuptials were simple yet charming. I experienced a deep sensation of having discovered my lifetime companion when we exchanged vows. Mary, Jonathan's mother, was also present. She spoke softly, talking about how excited she was about having grandkids. Married life was blissful at first. Jonathan remained working at his real estate company while I stayed at my firm. We had nice walks, movie evenings, and hearty dinners. However, the calm started to wane as the topic of children came up more often, especially when Mary encouraged it. Her informal remarks quickly evolved into an unrelenting plea for grandkids. It became regular to get phone calls asking how I was doing with my pregnancy and comments made during visits regarding how a kid would complete the family. Mom, give us some time. Jonathan attempted to joke away the strain, but it just grew more. I tried to be empathetic at first, trying to appreciate her enthusiasm about being a grandma. Still, her constant meddling started to wear thin. I confided in Jonathan one evening, saying, "Your mom needs to give us some space. She seems to play a larger role in our marriage than we do." Jonathan seemed uncomfortable, but he waved my worries away, saying it was only her excitement. Mary's grip on our life grew stronger and went beyond her obsession with her grandkids. She had views on everything, including our eating habits and money management. Jonathan's phone rang one Saturday morning when he and I were having breakfast. It was Mary, and Jonathan placed her on speaker as usual. "Jonathan, how are you both doing with your food?" "Recall that conception depends on a nutritious diet," she stated sternly. While I forced a tight grin, overwhelmed by her constant presence in our life, Jonathan laughed and comforted her. She seemed to be observing everything we did. Any issue was becoming worse, adding levels of stress to our marriage that I had not expected. As Mary's visits increased in frequency, one evening she showed up without warning, carrying a bundle of parenting literature. "Grace, you ought to get into these." She hefted the books onto the coffee table and said, "It's never too early to prepare." I glanced at Jonathan, expecting him to step in, but all he did was shrug. "Many thanks, Mary. We'll have a look," I said, trying to seem somewhat appreciative. Her visits eventually became routine, as though she was closely monitoring us to make sure we were ready for parenting. Whenever she brought up the topic of babies, Jonathan would only nod in agreement. I finally snapped one night after yet another of Mary's intrusive visits. "We need to discuss, Jonathan," I remarked in a frustrated tone of voice. With his eyes fixed on the TV, he inquired, "What's up?" "It's your mother. We're getting too much of her baby talk." "Without her meddling, we can scarcely enjoy our time together," I said. At last, Jonathan looked up at me. "Grace, she's simply excited. She has good intentions." "Excited or obsessed?" I shot back. "It feels like she's the third wheel in our marriage." Jonathan let out a sigh. "She's my mother. What action do you want me to take? Tell her not to give a damn." "Jonathan, it's not about compassion. It's about honoring our boundaries and choices. Are you blind to that?" We came to an end of our talk when Jonathan did not say anything, turning back to the TV. In fact, things became worse. Mary's visits increased in frequency, and her advice started to encroach more and more. "The two of you ought to go on a trip." One day, she said, "Just relax, it will help with conception." There was another occasion when she casually said, maybe Grace should quit her job to reduce stress. It seemed like she was controlling our life and Jonathan was just going along with it. My own marriage started to feel like an alien place to me. The warmth and compassion that had previously united Jonathan and me were beginning to fade, eclipsed by Mary's imposing presence. The relentless pressure about having a baby was straining us both, leading to more arguments and a noticeable evaporation of the romance that once filled our home. Yet I clung to the hope that things would improve, that somehow we would find our way back to each other. But then everything changed. One evening, Jonathan came home unusually late, his demeanor more somber than I had ever seen. I was in the kitchen, hurriedly preparing dinner when I noticed his state. "Jonathan, is everything okay?" I asked, concerned. He collapsed into a kitchen chair, burying his face in his hands. "We need to talk, Grace," he said, his voice heavy with gravity. A chill ran down my spine as I sat opposite him, my heart pounding with apprehension. "It's about us trying to have a baby," he began, not meeting my eyes. "Remember those tests we went for?" He finally looked up, his eyes meeting mine, filled with an emotion I couldn't immediately place. "A few weeks ago, Jonathan and I decided to undergo a fertility checkup, hoping it might ease Mary's relentless pressure. When Jonathan came home that evening, his expression was somber, and I knew the results were in. "It's not you, Grace. It's me," he said, taking a deep breath. He explained that the doctor had diagnosed him with a low sperm count, making it unlikely for him to father a child. The news hit us hard, a mix of relief, sadness, and confusion swirling within me. "What do you mean?" I asked, reaching out to squeeze his hand, seeking to provide some solace. Jonathan's voice broke as he replied, "I can't father a child, Grace." He withdrew his hand, a gesture that felt like a wall going up between us. "I won't go through treatment. It's not something I'm prepared to face." I was stunned by his refusal. "But why? If there's even a slight chance, shouldn't we try?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. "It's my decision, Grace. I just can't," he replied firmly, his finality piercing the air. I couldn't wrap my head around his resistance. The Jonathan I knew was always resilient, willing to face challenges head-on. "Please don't let this drive a wedge between us. We can face this together," I pleaded. He stood, avoiding my gaze. "I need some time alone to think," he said. And with those words, he left the kitchen, leaving me in a whirlwind of unanswered questions and rising fears. His outright refusal to consider any options was baffling. Was his pride really standing in the way of our future together? The following days were tense. Jonathan barely spoke, and when he did, his words were clipped and cold. The growing distance felt like a chasm in the foundation of our marriage, widening with each silent meal and unshared night. Then one evening, the fragile state of our union cracked open irreversibly. Jonathan returned home late again. I lay in bed, feigning sleep, when I heard him on the phone. "Yes, Mom, I got the results." "No, I don't want treatment. I'll figure something out," he whispered into the phone, a conversation he hadn't had with me. It felt like a betrayal, not just of our intimacy, but of our vows. Mary's influence was more invasive than I had ever realized, and as I lay there, tears streamed down my face, marking the silence of our room. Our home had become a shell of the warm, loving environment it once was. We were like two strangers merely sharing the same space, the remnants of our love lost in the shadow of his mother's overbearing influence. Just when I thought our situation couldn't get any more strange, life threw me an unexpected curveball. I had been feeling unwell, attributing it to stress at first, but then I missed my period. Despite the recent news about Jonathan's condition, a part of me dared to hope. I bought a pregnancy test, and sitting in the bathroom waiting for the result was agonizing. Then the indicator showed positive. I was pregnant. For a moment, I was in disbelief. After all the discussions about infertility, this seemed like a miraculous glimmer of hope amidst the ruins of our marriage. That evening, as Jonathan walked in, his usual late self barely acknowledging my presence, I knew I had to tell him. Taking a deep breath, I approached him. "Jonathan, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of our future. He looked up, weary. "What is it now, Grace?" "I'm pregnant," I blurted out, the words hanging between us in a heavy silence. Then he let out a bitter, cynical laugh. "Pregnant? How? The doctor said I can't." "I don't know, but the test is positive. We're going to have a baby," I said, tears starting to well up in my eyes. He stood up suddenly, anger flashing in his eyes. "This is some kind of joke, right? You're trying to trap me." I was shocked. "Trap you?" "Jonathan, I'm telling you, we're going to have a baby. Our baby." He paced the room, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "No, this can't be. You must have cheated. That's it, isn't it? You cheated on me." I felt as though I had been physically struck. Cheated? How can you even say that? I've been nothing but faithful to you. He wasn't listening, consumed by his rage and disbelief. He shouted, "Get out. I want you out of this house. Jonathan, please, let's talk about this. We can go to the doctor and get a confirmation." I pleaded, but it was like talking to a wall. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. That night, I slept in the guest room, my mind swirling with emotions. The next day, Jonathan was gone before I woke up. His mother, Mary, showed up instead. The look on her face was a mix of anger and disgust. "You should be ashamed of yourself, Grace, trapping my son with another man's child," she spat. "I didn't cheat on Jonathan. This child is his." I defended myself firmly. She laughed coldly. "Do you take me for a fool? My son can't have children. You're just a gold digger trying to secure your future." I was stunned by her cruelty. This is Jonathan's child. I've never been with anyone else. She moved closer, her voice venomous. "You have 2 weeks to pack your things and leave. And don't even think about asking for alimony or child support. You won't get a dime from us." Mary's ultimatum was the last straw. I knew I couldn't continue living in a house filled with resentment and false accusations. It was time to take control of my life, for my sake and for the baby's. First things first, I filed for divorce. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary. Jonathan and his mother tried to make it difficult. They wanted a piece of everything I had, claiming it was their right. But I had a strong case. Everything I owned, all my savings and property, were mine long before Jonathan entered my life. Their attempts to grab what wasn't theirs failed miserably. As for alimony, I didn't ask for a penny. I wanted no financial ties to Jonathan, no reason for him or his mother to interfere in my life again. I was determined to start anew, free from their toxicity. I found a modest apartment, not too fancy, but cozy enough to be a fresh start. Packing up my things from the house was bittersweet. Every photo and every piece of furniture had a memory attached to it, but I was ready to leave them behind. The day I moved out, Jonathan was conspicuously absent. Maybe he couldn't face me, or perhaps he just didn't care. Either way, it didn't matter. I left the keys on the counter and closed that chapter of my life. The first few nights in my new apartment were the hardest. The silence was overwhelming, and the reality of my situation often brought me to tears. But I found comfort in the little life growing within me. Every night I talked to my unborn child, filling my small apartment with whispers of hope and love. Gradually, what had felt like a sanctuary started to feel like a true home. My daily routines brought comfort, and my connection with my unborn child strengthened with each passing day. One afternoon, as I sorted through some old boxes, I stumbled upon a photograph of Jonathan and me in better times. A pang of sadness briefly washed over me, but it quickly gave way to relief. That chapter of my life was firmly behind me. Just then, my phone rang. It was Jonathan. "Grace, I've received the divorce papers," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "I'm glad they reached you." "Please handle the formalities," I replied, striving for calm. There was a pause before he added, "I won't bother you about the baby. You won't hear from me again." It was a cold farewell, but it brought closure. Hanging up, I realized that in my solitude, I had discovered a resilience I hadn't known I possessed. I was ready to face the future, not as Jonathan's estranged wife, but as a strong, independent woman and a devoted mother. On a quiet evening, as I sat reading a magazine, my 5-year-old son, Arthur, played with his toys on the floor. Our peace was interrupted by a knock at the door. Puzzled, I answered, finding a woman on my doorstep whose eyes reflected a familiar sorrow. Hi, Grace. It's been a long time, she said hesitantly. It took me a moment, but then I recognized her as Pamela, a friend from my past life with Jonathan. Pamela, yes, it has been. What brings you here? I asked. She looked uncomfortable, glancing at Arthur, who was now peeking curiously from behind my legs. I thought you should know about Jonathan, she said, her voice soft. Just hearing his name after all these years sent a shiver through me. What about him? I asked, maintaining a steady tone. Pamela sighed. He's not doing well, Grace. After you left, things went downhill for him. He became an alcoholic, remarried a few years ago, and had another child. But the boy was born with disabilities, and Jonathan couldn't handle it. He left them, divorced his wife, and now he's refusing to pay child support. He's in legal trouble. The news struck me, but not in the way Pamela might have expected. I felt a profound sadness, not for Jonathan, but for his child and the woman he had left behind. That's terrible, I said softly. Pamela nodded. I thought you should know, given your past with him. I appreciated her concern, but knew I had to maintain boundaries. Thank you for telling me, Pamela, but that part of my life is over. Jonathan made his choices, and they have nothing to do with me or my son. Pamela looked at Arthur, then back at me. I understand, Grace. I just thought. I offered a small, sad smile. I appreciate it, Pamela, but my focus is on Arthur and our life now. What Jonathan does or doesn't do isn't my concern anymore. She nodded, seemingly understanding. I hope you and Arthur are happy, Grace. You both deserve it. Thank you. We are, I assured her, glancing at Arthur, now fully absorbed in his toys again. After Pamela left, I closed the door and leaned against it, taking a moment to breathe deeply. The past has a way of sneaking up on you, but I was determined to keep it at bay, ensuring our future remained bright and unaffected by the shadows of days gone by. But I was resolute in my determination not to let the shadows of the past darken the vibrant life I had carefully built for myself and my son. The park was alive that day, buzzing with the laughter of children and the distant barks of dogs at play. I watched Arthur, my heart swelling with pride, as he dashed around energetically, his laughter mingling with the ambient sounds of joy. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the air, chilling my warm feelings. Grace, is that you? My heart sank as I turned around. It was Mary, my former mother-in-law, striding towards us with a fixated gaze on Arthur. Mary, I greeted her coolly. What are you doing here? She ignored the frost in my voice, her eyes never straying from Arthur. He's grown so much. He's your son, right? Yes, this is Arthur, I replied, subtly stepping between her and my son. Her eyes sparkled with an unsettling eagerness. I was hoping to see him. After all, he's my grandson. A wave of irritation washed over me. And why would you want to see him? Well, you know my other grandson, she began, her voice trailing off as her expression darkened. He's not well. He's sick. It's just not the same. I want to be part of a healthy grandchild's life. Her words struck me harshly, a verbal slap. The disdain in her voice for her grandchild was shocking. Mary, I said, my voice steel hard, you have no right to be part of Arthur's life. Not after everything that happened. But Grace, that was all Jonathan's doing, she protested weakly. I shook my head dismissively. You supported him. You turned against me when I was carrying your grandchild, and now you speak with such contempt about your other grandson just because he's sick. That's unforgivable. Mary's face hardened. You can't keep me away from my grandson. I can and I will, I declared firmly. Arthur doesn't need someone in his life who values people based on their health. He will not be part of your twisted view of family. She looked like she wanted to argue further, but I cut her off. This conversation is over. Stay away from us, Mary. Your presence is neither wanted nor welcomed. Taking Arthur's hand, I walked away, leaving Mary standing alone, her face a mix of anger and disbelief. As we walked, Arthur looked up at me, his innocent eyes brimming with questions. "Mommy, who was that lady?" "That was someone we used to know, sweetheart," I replied gently, "but she's not part of our lives anymore." Later, sitting on the porch and watching the sunset paint the sky with warm colors, I felt a profound sense of peace inside. Arthur's laughter echoed as he played, signaling that life had settled into a calm rhythm, the storms of the past now distant memories. "Mom, look what I made." Arthur's voice pulled me from my reverie as he rushed out holding a drawing in his hands. A picture of the two of us smiling under a big bright sun. "It's beautiful, Arthur," I said, pulling him into a hug. "You're quite the artist." He beamed with pride. "I want to put it on the fridge." "Let's do that," I smiled, following him inside. As we walked, I reflected on how far we'd come. There was a time when the weight of the past once seemed crushing, but now it felt more like a distant echo. Later that evening, after Arthur had drifted off to sleep, I sat quietly with a cup of tea, reflecting on the day's events. The phone's ring broke the silence, and I hesitated before answering. "Hello." "Hi, Grace. Kayla is here." All I wanted to do was check in. "How's it going for you and Arthur?" "Kayla, we're doing well." With a smile on my face, I answered, "Arthur's growing up so fast." "I was made aware of your encounter with Mary. Are you all right?" There was warmth and care in her voice. I exhaled. Yes, it caught me off guard, but it's all right. It is only an additional memento of the past. You've come a long way, but I know it's difficult. Grace, you've created an amazing life for yourself and Arthur, and you're strong, she remarked in a supportive manner. Many thanks, Kayla. It has great significance. Her comments were like a warm blanket wrapped around me. We chatted for a while longer about ordinary things, brief but consoling bits of life. This relationship with my sister served as a crucial reminder of my support network, especially on the days when everything seemed overwhelming. I hung up and went to the living room, where Arthur's drawing sat on the fridge, looking pleased. Upon closer inspection, I saw how much we had both matured. Healing and fresh starts had taken precedence over the hurt and rage of the past. I crept over to Arthur's chamber and watched him go off to sleep. I leaned down and gave him a gentle forehead kiss. I said, "Good night, my little artist." I stood back on the porch and watched the stars come up in the night sky. It was true that the memories of the past were fading and losing their grip on me. Hope, a quiet strength, and the unwavering love of a mother for her kid replaced them. This new chapter was about more than simply moving on. It was about thriving in the warmth of fresh starts and the solace of strong family ties.